Welcome to the webinar. I hope everyone is safe and well. We're delighted to have you here with us today. My name's Joel Goodson. I run content here at Detego, and I have the pleasure of introducing not only this webinar, but our fantastic set of speakers for today. Before I do that, just a quick bit of housekeeping. You can ask your questions through the Q&A function here on Zoom. So please go ahead and make use of that throughout, and I will jump in and get any questions you might have answered throughout the presentation. So today's webinar will be exploring how to get started with RFID if you're a retailer looking to get started with the technology. Detego and Spencer are both really well placed to take you through this subject. So why don't I introduce our amazing panelists today? They can tell us a little bit about themselves. So first up, we have Nate Strickler from Spencer Technologies. Good afternoon, Nate.
Yeah, thank you, Joel. Happy to be here, guys, and thank you everyone for joining. We're super excited to kind of go through RFID and what Spencer and Detego can do to help you guys along that journey.
Fantastic, thanks, Nate. And also from Spencer Technologies, Lauren Hines. Good afternoon.
Hello, everybody. I'm Lauren Hines. I'm the VP of Sales at Spencer, and excited to talk about RFID.
Brilliant. And finally, we have Umesh Cooduvalli, who's going to introduce himself and also get us started with the presentation. Good afternoon, Umesh.
Thanks, Joel. Thanks for having me here. I'm the VP of Sales for Detego in North America, and I've come with over a decade of experience in RFID, doing pilots and rollouts in the US and in Europe and also in Asia. So looking forward to speaking with you.
We'll get rolling then with Umesh.
Great. So let me talk about Detego. We are an end-to-end retail software solution provider in RFID. What that means is we provide use cases in factories and DCs as well as store solutions. And I'll take you through all of that in detail in the next few slides. Just a little bit more about Detego. We are headquartered in London, and we have our DevOps team in Austria, and we have presence in 4 continents in over 20 countries with over 40,000 users, and we support 13 languages. We also support iOS and Android. And as you can see, some of the top customers here, Adidas, Levi's, Bestseller, and many others. And also in the supply chain side, we have some of the big names as XPO Logistics and UPS as our customers. So talking about end-to-end retail, if you look at all the inventory management systems out there, they all provide SKU level information, all the ERP systems and other traditional systems. And in RFID, we provide item level intelligence to the SKU level system that you have, and we integrate to all of the platforms out there. So we provide factory solutions. In factories, we do outbound verification, tagging, printing, and coding. And in the DCs, we have many use cases that we provide. I'll go through details in a little bit. And also in store solutions. And we put all of these use cases together, and we provide you track and trace and item level visibility across the supply chains.
Thanks, Umesh. I'll do a quick intro on Spencer as well. So we partner with Detego as a global retail IT solution provider, mainly because of our people and technicians. So we have people and technicians scattered around the globe to help you deliver anything on your IT roadmap, right? So on the right-hand side here, you see some of those solutions and services that we bring. And of that is obviously RFID, and that's why we're here talking today. So across the globe, anything wall-to-wall within your retail store are people that support you and help you design and manage how you use that within your environment. So again, here's just a couple more small facts about Spencer to give you a better grasp of what we do and who we are. We were founded in 1972, so we've come a long way with what we did back then to what we do now, and we've been able to grow into 30+ countries. And that's a big help with our our UK facilities out there, they really kind of do a great job at expanding across the globe and getting us into Australia, Mexico. We're also in Canada, as you can see there. And then below here are some of our strategic partners and clients who help us deliver what we do, right? So many of you guys may be here today, so thank you for everything. And we really hope you guys can get something useful and knowledgeable out of this webinar today. Here's just one more view of kind of some of the things we do, right? Here, we like to think of things in life cycles. So all of your technology, all of your solutions that you do kind of start with a plan and manage stage where you have to discuss what you're trying to accomplish, whether it's RFID or wireless networks or point of sale, whatever it is. There is a cyclical pattern to how you figure out what you want to use, how you're going to use it, how you're going to get it, right? So that's where the procurement comes in, and stage and configure to modify it, make it talk and act the way you want, and then all the way through a deployment and an ongoing support model that helps you, prolong the life of that investment you made through a depot repair program. So when things break, we can fix it and redeploy it back out into your field. And then obviously, once the end of life comes around, there's a recycling component to prepare you for your next solution. So here's just another great slide here where we're going to kind of pair the two together, right? So Spencer and Detego. Detego's a software company. Spencer, we're a solution service provider. So right here, you see kind of the four main pillars of an RFID solution. So software, services, labels, and hardware are kind of four of the key components you will need to bring this solution to life. And we believe that with Spencer and Detego, we're able to kind of pull all those resources together and package it up and make it as easy as possible for retailers to implement this technology. So now we're going to kind of move into RFID in retail specifically.
Yeah, let me talk about this slide here. There's many retailers who are now using RFID in fashion and retail, especially fashion retail, apparel and shoes. The adoption is increasing significantly. Main reason being RFID lends itself to where you have products, SKU, color, style, complexity, the complexity in inventory management. RFID technology really helps in getting stock accuracy significantly higher in each of your stores, and product availability, item level intelligence really helps in omni-channel fulfillment and in the end customer experience. Right. So if you look at all the store solutions that we do and all the use cases, there's many here that we have listed here. So the stock taking, cycle counting. Most retailers are doing just once a year counts if they're not using RFID, mainly because barcodes need line of sight. Takes forever to do a cycle count with barcodes with manual counting. So they typically do once or twice a year. But with RFID, we can count about 20,000 items in a matter of 20 minutes. So if you have more mobile devices that you can use in a store, we can actually do team counting. So it really helps reduce the amount of time it takes to do inventory counts. So instead of doing once a year, you end up going to, maybe, if you do even once a week, 50 times or 50 times more. And many of our customers doing daily counts, they do intraday replenishments. Within a day, during the morning, afternoon, and evenings, your on-floor availability will go down because you're selling, depending on inventory turns, you're selling items very fast. So you never want to go to zero on any SKU in the sales floor. So you want to replenish from the back room to the sales floor as quickly as possible. So those are some of the key use cases, cycle counting. And you do article search, article info, Geiger functions, finding items, backroom to sales floor, the moves, relocation. One of the key things here is smart shielding. One of the things we do here, back in the day, you had to use physical shielding between the backroom to the sales floor, such as, metallic paint or aluminum foil, etc., and do the grounding, etc. So now with our software, we are able to know which items are in the back room and which are in the sales floor. So we know the location of each tag. So it really helps in rapid rollouts, and we'll talk more about that. In some of the other use cases here, the smart fitting room, smart shielding, I just mentioned, inbound, right? So from the DC to the stores, it really helps to know exactly what you're receiving and make the receiving process faster and easier, and have a reconciliation against your ASNs from the DC to the stores. So RFID enabled receiving in the store is typically about 6 times more efficient than barcode scanning and receiving items, or even blind receiving, just simply saying, okay, I received whatever the DC sent. So there's an audit process here that's going on. And we can also do tagging and encoding here for any exceptions. Um, of course, the higher level use cases like BOPIS, BORIS, ship from store, ship back to DC, all of those. Right? So
Umesh, we actually have a question regarding that, so this might be a good time. So someone asked that they'd like to do e-commerce and omni-channel fulfillment in stores and use RFID for that. Their question was, when can they start doing that in the kind of RFID journey?
So what I typically recommend is do the, get all of your stores enabled with RFID and get each store to 98% plus accuracy, meaning the cycle count. That's the use case. The stock taking is the primary use case. I recommend that you implement in all the stores, deploy it as fast as possible, and then you can add higher level use cases because, omni-channel, everything, it requires integration to your OMS systems, order management systems. So I always recommend get the stock accuracy high as quickly as possible in every store, manage it well. We automate all the, store operations and everything. It really helps and makes it more efficient to have the stock levels, item level accuracy very high, so that your omni-channel fulfillment rates will go up. So your cancel rates will go down significantly because you know exactly what you have in each store.
Great, thanks for that. We actually have one more, and I think it's probably best to answer this as soon as possible, really. Is this kind of RFID, is it just for fashion retail?
There's the fashion retail really adopted the RFID technology from years ago. But there's a lot of tangential markets coming on board. So the same solutions can be applied really to many, different different products, such as, like health and beauty, right? So that market is coming up, in the beauty market because the product SKU complexity is very high there. And there's also others, like eyeglasses, eyewear. If you think of how many types of eyeglasses are there, right? Colors, styles, etc. And also home goods and other products. Yeah.
I think Umesh, on that same point, this is a good visual as well of looking at it as in a DC or a warehouse environment where you're actually tracking pallets through these fixed readers kind of as they go through a conveyor belt, right? And this is another example of using it not necessarily within fashion and beauty retail, right? But it could be anything within these boxes or pallets as they go through, and there's just built-in efficiencies and operational gains from using it.
Yeah, so let me talk about this chart here. Good point, Nate. In the DC's warehouses, if you look at, you talk to any retailer, their business is up significantly in e-commerce, right? And DTC. Nike just announced a couple of weeks back they're pulling out 1,000 stores, but where is that business going? It's going to DTC, right? Direct to consumer. That's happening from the DCs and warehouses. So they may not have the capacity to handle increased workload, increased capacity in each DC, which means they're building new DCs or adding to the DC that they have. So RFID use cases here in the warehouses and DCs really enable them to fulfill orders that they get with a much higher accuracy, and also the throughput will increase from each DC. So in the DC, we do inbound verification through tunnels, cross-docking and exception handling, and audit stations. We audit what you're packing, because every store is ordering what they need from the DCs. Not every store gets the same thing, right? So if you're managing 1,000 stores, every store will be ordering what they need. So you need to be able to fulfill those orders effectively and accurately. And then we do outbound and outbound verification as well. And we do DTC, direct to consumer, and we also do returns handling. So this is a very unique thing, that as a solution provider that we do together. And DCs are essentially connected to the store solutions. Typically, most retailers start with store solutions because that's the biggest bang for the buck. And you want to have store accuracy extremely high, very fast. And then they start, getting into the DC use cases, and then go into factory use cases. So, I talked about store solutions and a lot of the use cases there, right? And then I talked about DC warehouse use cases. And here are some higher level use cases. Typically what I say is always start with stock accuracy in each store, right? That's the cycle counting. Kind of the foundation, it's like building the foundation first in a house, and then put the walls, and then the roof. This is kind of the roof. These are the high level use cases. We do automated planograms. These are artificial intelligence and machine learning use cases. We do AI driven pick lists, and also money mapping, showing where you're making more money in a store and where you're not making so much money, and how to even optimize, fixture capacity optimization. Say, in this fixture, you have too much and you need to reduce the number of items, and also recommend basically which items should be close to what items in a particular store, for example. But I recommend these high level use cases only in the end. You really need to go through the journey of, having the stock accuracy at 98% plus levels in each of your stores. That's the beginning.
Yeah. While we've kind of looped back around to stores, we have another question in. What is the kind of average inventory and stock levels in stores that don't use RFID?
What we typically see, in my experience, is about 70%, 65, 70% stock accuracy, right? So there's a really nice article we have on our website. Is basically explains the difference between SKU accuracy to item level accuracy. So a lot of people in retail make the mistake of having high level SKU accuracy versus what's the difference between SKU and item level. That really explains it well. So I recommend you download that. So in case of in the business case, the biggest business case is getting the stock accuracy very high. What does that translate to, right? So it translates to having the right items available at the right place, and where and knowing as a retailer what you have in each store, what do you have in the back room, what do you have in the sales floor, and what you are selling is what you're keeping, nothing more and nothing less, right? So what that translates to is sales uplift. So people ask me, what will be my sales uplift if I do this? But typically you get sales uplift once you're rolled out to all the stores. And also, it varies between store to store, depending on store performance and their compliance, right? So what we see, even in third party, like white papers and others that you see, typically you get about 5 to 15% sales uplift after the rollout of the key use cases, right? And net margin increases obviously because you're not doing any fire sales or you're not doing markdowns, right? And productivity increase, compared to barcode, RFID is about 20 times more efficient, 20 to 26 times more. So it is significant, right? So you gain productivity increase in so many things, like the store associates are not doing any, manual counting. They can find things very quickly, and the store operations are automated, right? So the moves, the back room to sales floor, the replenishments, all the order management, receiving, everything gets automated. So you get huge gains in productivity. And lower working capital, what that means is, after the first year of rollout, you typically see your enterprise level inventory go down, because nobody's keeping overstock.
Thanks, Umesh.
Yeah.
We're talking about the journey here. Lauren Hines is going to take us through a little bit of what that looks like.
Nate. So yeah, to realize all of those benefits that Umesh just kind of covered, kind of like, where do we begin and how do we get it started? So we found, working together as partners, we came up with a pretty good plan to kind of map out what the whole journey is and what steps need to be taken. So to start the journey, we really want to begin with an evaluation. And this helps us understand where you are today and then where you want to go. So the first part of that evaluation is understanding your goals. So as a retailer, we want to know what's the focus or vision for short-term and long-term plans, and identify where is it that RFID can assist with those goals. Then next, we look at the technology stack that you have today. What hardware are you already using? And are you looking at a different technology stack in the near future? So the hardware is a big component of that. And then lastly, we look at the RFID tags in general. Now, tagging has become more and more commonplace for retailers. And for those that aren't doing their own manufacturing, you may find that you have more tags in place than you realize. So we kind of go through and do a tag audit to see what you have in place. For retailers that do their own manufacturing, this is the point where we start talking about what the options are. And you may have already been looking at tags and really kind of helping you through that process and understanding what the end game vision is going to be.
Yeah. So Lauren, just to add to that, just a couple of points there. We can help you guys with tag selection, and what type of chip you want to use, and what type of inlay, what size inlay, all of those things. A lot of good recommendations we can do with our experience, and depending on the use cases that you're doing, we can also do recommendations on which hardware really fits well with what type of use case. So we can help you with all of the components there.
And then as we're going through the evaluation, one of the benefits of RFID is that you don't have to do RFID everywhere all in one go. The real benefit is its scalability. So last year really taught us in the retail space that we've got to be agile. Things can happen in a minute that completely change the plans that we had laid out. And in the case of RFID, you might want to start off small and realize some benefits before you decide to implement it end to end. Or you could be in a place where, we want to just go in and get it done. RFID really gives you that flexibility. You can start small and grow it, or, go big or go home, as we say. So then after we've done the evaluation, now it's really the time to start doing the planning. So we know where you are, we know where you want to go, and now we're going to develop this plan. And in our experience, one of the crucial factors to the planning is getting a solid steering committee in place. Really, all parts of the business can benefit or be impacted by RFID. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about the steering committee in just a minute, but that is absolutely a critical factor. Next, we want to focus on how are you going to plan to operationalize RFID? And this is where we kind of help you go through understanding what are going to be the impacts to your day-to-day operations, and really looking at your operational processes, because the reality is your store associates and other people in the business are going to have some time on their hands. What do we want them doing if they're not having to do cycle counts? And then finally, Spencer, Detego, we work with your steering committee and start planning the solution. So Detego is going to work with your team to understand the software components. And Spencer, we start looking at sourcing the hardware, making the integration plans, and mapping the logistics that are going to bring the solution together. And then next, that about the steering committee. So I mentioned it earlier, this is a key component to the whole planning process. And, you know, you want to be sure that all parts of the business are involved and have some input. And that's your IT department, your loss prevention, your store planning, really making sure that the company as a whole understands the impacts and benefits that RFID can bring to the table. And then likewise, Spencer and Detego, we put together a committed team that works with your steering committee and kind of take them through this whole journey and bringing to light, like, okay, here are the things that we need to plan for, and understanding what are each of those departments' goals and how does RFID impact those. So the steering committee and Detego and Spencer all work together to help make this journey get realized. So once we've gone through all of the planning, now it's time to start a pilot. And first we want to know, what is success going to look like? What measures do we need to track that are going to tell us the RFID solution has been successful? So during the pilot, Spencer and Detego, we provide on-site support. So that could be helping with the tagging process if that's needed, helping you train staff on how to use the solution, getting the solution stood up, putting your stations in place. And we're also observing the whole process end to end. The key piece to any pilot is making sure that you test the entire process end to end. So it's not just, does the solution work, but have your store processes, you know, have you tweaked them enough and have those changed? Are the KPIs that we're looking at, are they the right measures that we want to focus on? Have we missed something? Is there a better benefit, you know, that we just totally bypassed us? So the pilot is for us, it's where the rubber kind of meets the road and really tests our solution. And then next, it's about getting ready for the rollout. So we've done the pilot. Now it's, what do we have to tweak? Do we have to make any adjustments? Was there something that a benefit that we didn't realize was going to be there, and we have to make some adjustments for that? So when it comes to getting ready for the rollout, that's kind of doing a backward plan. You know, do we need to have a plan in place to get tagging ready so that all the stores are ready to receive RFID? Do we have some work to complete on an API integration? What's the training plan going to be for all of the different departments? Next slide. And this is where it comes back to the steering committee and the Detego Spencer team. So we take all of those stakeholders and look at their area of the business, the department that they focus on, and make sure they have that readiness plan in place. And what are the timelines for that? And then finally, it comes to doing the rollout and actually delivering the RFID solution. So we've done an evaluation, we've developed a plan with the steering committee, performed a pilot, created the rollout readiness plan. So all of the hard work has actually been done. The only thing that's left to do is pick a date. So Spencer and Detego work together and handle all of the rollout logistics and deliver a plug and play solution. And it's basically, we just need to know, when do you want to start and how fast do you want the implementation to take place?
Just to add to what Lauren said here, you know, we can do rapid rollouts. We have done, 100 stores per month rollout speed with Levi's and previously, and now we can do over 200 stores per month. Really, we look at, source tagged items in the store. All the items in the store are tagged, then we're good to go. And it's also the global presence we have with Spencer, right? So in any store you have across North America, for example, where we are able to send somebody there within 4 hours, any store you have. So that kind of presence is kind of unmatched in the industry. So
yeah, and we understand that rollouts are different, right? Depending on what your solution is, right? If you just have a sled and you may already have a mobile handheld that's compatible at your stores, right? And you need to figure out, how do you just get a sled out there and tag up your inventory and get the Detego software loaded up, right? That's a completely different type of rollout than, hey, we need to set up an RFID station at every one of our stores where it's going to have 5 sleds, and it might have some sort of fixed reader over a backstock room. And, you know, it can range from so many different types of versions that fit you. So whether you need an on-site tech or just like some sort of representative engineer call to say, hey, how does this equipment work? There's so many different ways to do a rollout, you know, and it kind of goes back to what Lauren was saying, whether you want to start small, right? Let's just do 20 stores and then 50 stores and then 100 stores, right? Or if your roadmap says we need to do this now and need to get it out right away, that is kind of piece of the true value between Detego and Spencer. So.
Yeah, another point to mention here is, you know, in most of the factories, they're already offering, you know, RFID enabled products, right? They're already putting a price ticket or a tag. So if you ask for RFID enabled tags, we call it source tagging. Most factories out there are already enabled. So
yeah, I think to that point, Umesh, it's that's where the evaluation really kind of sets the tone. So many times we've worked with people that they anticipate this is going to be some huge endeavor and it's going to be very arduous because it's it's implementing this whole new technology, and we do the evaluation. It's like, you're 75% of the way there. There's not a whole lot left to do because you've got a lot of tags already in place. You've already got some of the hardware in place. So implementing this kind of technology can really be almost effortless.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys. I mean, that's kind of the wrap up of the journey portion and looking into RFID and retail. So at this point, we can definitely open up for any questions. Finished your, yeah.
We've got a couple, and we also had a couple sent in to us before the webinar today. So let's go for some of those. I guess that was a slightly easier one. How long does an RFID pilot typically last for, and how many stores typically would an RFID pilot for stores cover?
I usually I recommend, you know, depending on the number of types of stores you have, right? So you can pick a representative kind of a thing, you know, like do you have outlet stores or street stores?
Oh no.
Or mega stores or mall stores. Typically, I recommend at least 2 stores. Yeah, typically I recommend 2 stores pilot for 2 or 3 months.
And we've worked with retailers that have very large footprints, so upwards of 3,000 stores, and for them a true pilot is going to be more like 90 stores. And again, to Umesh's point, you might have multiple brands or multiple store types, and the pilot, we want to be sure captures everything, your small footprints to your large footprints to the different types of stores that you have. So making sure that it covers the full spectrum of what you plan to roll out to.
Yeah, absolutely. Another question, I think this is probably for Spencer. So you have around 500 stores across the US. How do you source and prep the hardware for that number of stores?
Yeah, so I'll go ahead, Lauren. Thanks. We have a lot of partners who have different options for hardware, right? And we would work with different channels to procure it, right? So based on the spec that meets your store's requirement, we'll purchase it for you. It'll typically always come to our warehouse in Medway, Massachusetts, where we'll do a receiving and start to stage it, right? So there's obviously a configuration task that needs to happen. And working with Detego to figure out the right configuration of the software, and we'll then load it onto the devices and the hardware you need, in which then we'll package it up and ship it out to each store in a kind of as scheduled based on your pilot and rollout plan. And that's kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier of once it arrives there, I mean, there's many different ways to implement it, whether it's a tech on site or a phone call with a representative to kind of talk your way through how to use it. We've actually kind of been looking at a cool system where you can actually do augmented reality to have like a video chat with a store associate to say, hey, look, like here's my RFID scanner. What do I do with it? And then using kind of on-screen cues, you can kind of direct them to give kind of an instructional experience of how to use it and how it fits into their environment.
Yeah, nice. I think we'll finish up in a couple of minutes, but we do have time for a couple more questions. This should be a fairly simple one. So how quick can you kind of see the results from RFID in stores?
Umesh, is that one for you? I feel like you would probably have some good information there.
Yeah, you broke down. Can you repeat the question again, Joe?
Yeah, sure. How quick do you typically see the results from implementing RFID in stores?
Oh, sure. You know, in a pilot, typically, you know, in the first day we do the cycle count, you immediately see what's the difference between RFID and non-RFID, right? What stock accuracy you have compared to what you need to have. And within a couple of weeks, we can actually take you to 98% plus levels of stock accuracy, which is about a 20 to 30 point jump in accuracy. So you see the KPIs and, you know, being delivered almost within weeks of starting a pilot.
So fast.
Yep.
So I think we'll make this last one. Umesh, you kind of talked about this earlier. You talked about that kind of D2C shift in the industry. Where does RFID kind of fit into that? What would you say the best use cases are for a D2C model?
Yeah, so typically I recommend, you know, doing the store solutions first, the basic use cases, roll out to all the stores, and then in the DC, enable RFID enable ASNs, right? From DC to stores. And we call it goods receiving, basically receiving items from the DC to the stores, because each store typically, you know, they may replenish anywhere from 3 to 7 times a week in each store. So really helps doing that DC use case there and having confirmation that you're receiving the right items. And then add on the other use cases that I talked about in the DCs.
Fantastic. It looks like that's all the questions we had. So I guess we'll wrap it up there. Thank you very much for joining us. And once again, thank you to all our panelists for taking the time. It was a really interesting presentation. You should be receiving an email for the recording sometime tomorrow. And if you had any further questions, do let us know, do give us an email, and we'll get back to you. And once again, thank you very much.
Thank you all. Great.
Thank you. Bye.
Take care.